Hello, and welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. This is your host, Wesley Hilliard speaking, and I'm joined this week by guest Tim Chaten. You might know him from the iPad Pros podcast or Vision Pros podcast. I've been a guest on those before as well. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Aura Frames, Rula, and Anti-Gravity. If you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, you're not going to have to worry about ads. You're going to hear about the after show, which is going to cover the future of Apple Vision Pro and spatial computing. We might have touched on this topic before. I might even talked to Tim before on this subject, but it's going to have a little bit more context now that we have the M5 Apple Vision Pro, Vision OS 26, and everything else going on in that space. So that should be an interesting conversation for our premium subscribers. If you want to join our Apple Insider Plus subscription, you can do so via Patreon or Apple Podcasts. Now, William hasn't gone away. Don't worry. He is coming back. His vacation is pretty much done at this point. I'm sure he's listening, wishing he could jump in and yell at us about something, but he will be back next week. And from then on, as usual, with our scheduled show. And hopefully there's some news to talk about this winter. It looks like things have slowed down a little bit, but Tim and I have plenty to talk about this week, a few major topics. And now I'm going to throw over to that conversation with Tim. We're going to be talking about all the silly stuff with Apple's moving executive team. But first, Tim, tell me about yourself. What is it that you do? What is going on here? You are an iPads Pros podcast host. You host the Vision Pros podcast, but this isn't your day job, is it?
It is not. Not at all. It's what I love to do. I occasionally get sponsors for the podcast, which helps fund like a Vision Pro. That's how it's paid for by sponsors, thankfully. Because as we all know, the Vision Pro is an expensive piece of kit.
Right.
And, yeah, but I'm an enthusiast for computers that are not Macs. I grew up with the Mac in college. I was so excited. Macworld back in the day in high school was like, I got the 17-inch MacBook Pro, the first Intel one, and that was such an exciting moment. And fell in love with the Mac and knew all the nitty gritty Mac stuff from all those magazines. But when the iPad came out, fell in love with that on day one, and then the Vision Pro is another moment of, this is another exciting moment and like new form factor, new way of computing. That just I'm into that stuff.
Yeah. See, I think you're a little older than me, but we definitely are cut from the same cloth as far as computing goes, because we both are very excited by the iPad and the Vision Pro and those represent as the future of computing. I'll have links in the show notes to Tim's Mastodon page, his iPad and Vision Pro podcast. Are you anywhere else? I think you're still on X, aren't you?
My account's there, but I hardly ever post. Maybe once in a while, because the Vision Pro, the XR VR community is actually pretty heavy in X still. So I occasionally post podcast stuff there, just because that's where a lot of people still are.
So primarily Mastodon, gotcha.
Yeah.
Because you're not on Blue Sky yet. I'm never going to convince you to join Blue Sky.
At some point, I don't know. It's a lot of places. I'm on Threads too.
Fun.
LinkedIn, I need to get more into, because that's another heavy XR VR community that I need to get into, because that's where everyone is. But it's such a businessy place.
It just honestly feels like it's a bunch of bots. I'm not even sure how many humans are actually on LinkedIn. But I digress.
Yes.
So the whole thing, I mean, we know my history a little bit. I barely had a computer when I was younger. I had access to a Dell computer at my home for all of a month when I was like 13, and learned the ins and outs of how anything on that thing worked. But it is funny how both of us ultimately arrived at this platform. And I mean, I'll get to this later at the end of the show when I read some of the podcast reviews. But someone pointing out that it's crazy that I am iPad first, and I don't know. I find the platform interesting. I really love the direction it's going. I love that we had to make it more Mac-like in order for it to be more functional. But honestly, I'm okay with that, because it's still a unique paradigm. It's still touch first and focusing on a different interaction standpoint.
Yeah, when the iPad came out, I pre-ordered the 829 or whatever, the most expensive one with cellular, that came out a month later, and then I couldn't withstand not having it on day one. So on I went to cover the event I was doing the iPad Possibilities podcast back then as my very first podcast, and I went out to a friend's, my co-hosts in Kentucky, and the drive back to Indiana, the Apple store still had one before they closed, so
Nice.
grabbed one on the way home, and I would multitask between the two iPads. So one would be the reference screen, then I'd be working on the other iPad. So it was the multi iPad lifestyle back in 2010.
See, so yeah, you definitely predated all of us. I definitely, when I first joined Apple Insider, um, Mike was like, "You're working from an iPad." This was 2019, and I'm like, "Yeah, I have a Mac. I had a Mac Mini and Intel, whatever at the time, i5 processor. It wasn't spec'd out at all. I think it was like a 2017, 2018 Mac Mini, but it was there on a shelf in case I needed it.
Yep.
And by the time I joined Apple Insider, it was December 2019 when I first really started. So I had the accessibility cursor available connected over a hardware mouse, and I was using that to mouse around and using split view and slide over to multitask. It was wildly different from what we have today, and I'm glad that I started there, and I'm glad that I worked from there because it overcoming those challenges taught me a lot about the operating system, and as it evolved, letting some of those convoluted management systems go, let me see again like the strengths and weaknesses of iPad, where Mac actually shines in certain things. And I did go to Mac for a while, but I'm obviously back on iPad with everything that's happened in the past few years. But we've talked about that plenty on the show before. We don't need to get too far into it. But I guess I was going to ask, do you agree with me as far as comparison's sake that Mac OS, at least when I use it, it feels like an old paradigm. It feels like I'm traveling back in time 30 years to a different computing era. And then when I pick up the iPad, especially the Vision Pro, I feel like this is not only today, this is the future. And that's I don't know why that is, but that's how my brain reacts to these technologies. I might as well be using Windows XP when I pick up a Mac.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Windows XP as far as how far back, because there are a lot of more modern things, and it does
Sure.
talk nicely to the iPad stuff. But yeah, it does feel like, wow, this is of a different time. And my 3-year-old, she can pick up an iPad or a phone, and she knows how to use it. She's without any instruction. She knows how to dismiss notifications and get into the different apps. And you throw it in front of her a mouse, she just she just bangs it against the table. It's like it's a toy, So there's that. I wonder when the Mac eventually, if it ever does get a touchscreen, if that'll make it if the intuitiveness is touch, or if it's part of the OS design too. That'll be an interesting thing to experience with the kids, because the kids will reveal, is it just about the touch, or is it also about the design itself of the OS?
So we'll be talking plenty about design here in a little bit, but I think that's important. I've brought it up on the show before. I don't think there's any such thing as intuitive anything. Like, I mean, other than breathing, like you don't wake up one day knowing how to use Windows, right? You have to learn it. I'll always throw back to that ancient ad that ran back, I don't know, in the 90s of someone, it must have been Jennifer Aniston or something. It's like, hey, look, John, I'm computing or whatever. Like, I'm on the internet. Very silly of the time, but trying to tell people what this is and how to use it. And the first time you sit down on it, I mean, we learn it at a very young age. I remember learning about using a computer in kindergarten. At the time, it was whatever Apple was selling in 1994, maybe, but it was a very early computer. We used floppy disks to play games. I know maybe we had older systems because at the time I'm sure we were already moving past floppy, but it was just an interesting time to learn this stuff, and I remember it very clearly, even though I was very young.
But you had instructors, right?
Yes, we still had to be taught.
Right,
this is
like,
how you use a mouse.
Kids, my 3-year-old. I'm not teaching. I'm not encouraging it. Actually, she's like just like picking it up, and without instruction, she's learning herself some things that I think are pretty advanced for her age.
I think it's like the difference here between that old operating style, mouse cursor, buttons on the screen that you click versus physical touch. it is to an extent the touch, but if you just threw touch on macOS, it's still different than just giant buttons that you click on an iPad, right?
Totally.
Everything on an iPad is interactable, right? There's a lot of grab bars, there's a lot of large icons, every link is usually huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is, it's much more accessible. And I think there's something to it. iPad, I think, is the closest, or iPhone is the closest we'll ever see to an intuitive operating system because you do just pick it up, you do just touch it, and all of the hints and guidelines click with our stupid monkey brains.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is where we'll get into Alan Dye later and how things have evolved under him and how maybe we need to go back on a few things, but we'll get to there's a couple of major stories we're going to get to this week, and I've mentioned it before, but Tim and I are going to talk about the future of Vision Pro in the post show, so stick around for that. But let's go ahead and get to this first topic: Apple Health and ChatGPT. So, did you see this story come across?
I actually didn't really see it in my timeline. It wasn't a big thing for me. I think I heard it on a couple other shows of like, and it not being as big as people are saying it is probably going to be.
It got swallowed by the other news that we're going to get to, but there have been some hints of ChatGPT and Apple. Well, maybe not. So, long story short, previously there's been some discussion of an Apple AI doctor of some kind, or I don't think it would be a doctor. I think it's more of a coach that's going to be coming in a future iOS, maybe with this Siri update that's going to change everything to a LLM backend and all of that we've talked about before.
And there's the talk of if Apple should merge, if they're going to pay for charge for this, should they just merge this with Fitness Plus as one app? That, yeah.
Well, so yeah, Fitness Plus would become part of Health Plus, but it would not change. It would just go under a different subscription, which I think is fine. But yes, so that's a separate story because that is all Apple. That's Apple Health. That's Apple's foundation models running this local coach system. The ChatGPT integration is a new beat. Basically, some people digging through code found references to Apple Health and an icon inside of the ChatGPT app on iPhone, which is scary in its own way, but there's one of two ways this can go. Either Apple's integration that already exists, which does tie to the ChatGPT app on iPhone if you have an account and do all of that. The current integration works privately on iPhone. I know that's hard to believe, but Apple has a deal with ChatGPT that any data going through that integration cannot be stored or used to train anything. It is used for the query and thrown away.
That's the direct Siri integration, right? When you say Siri asks ChatGPT about this, right?
Yes, or you can use type to Siri. There's a couple of ways to get to it, but it is not. I'm not talking about the ChatGPT app. Now,
Right.
it is that is tied to it in some ways, and I'm not a GPT user, so I don't have the app. I'm not fully sure how they tie together, but I do know there is a login system in Apple settings that you can use to tie the two together. But as long as you're using that login, and as long as you're accessing ChatGPT through that, your data is getting synced to a server about your account. So,
And I
you're
find that integration super useful. Over Thanksgiving, I was using it all the time. Like, when was the last time this team won the Super Bowl or whatever? And do ask ChatGPT first because I don't trust Siri. And it was like, oh, this is working great. This is, a great way to get some information from this.
Yeah, Siri does well with things that are available in Wikipedia or uh, Wolfram Alpha, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like hyper factual specific details versus which sport team won. Now,
Or what time is this gonna happen?
yeah, like those kinds of math things and those kinds of sports things used to work and got broken when the Apple Intelligence stuff started, but that's clearly because they were messing with that back end and someone never unbroke that. And I think this is all tied back to it's all going to get fixed once we see that LLM Siri come along. But anyway, the ChatGPT integration is great. I personally don't use a login. I'm sure there's more you can do with it with a login, but I like the idea of it being totally anonymous. Just like if You use Siri to search the web. It's using Google, but it's using an identifier that keeps it separate from yourself and doesn't get added to. If you have a Google profile, it technically doesn't get added to that unless Google's doing some weird sniffing, which I
Mm.
actually don't think they are. So ChatGPT has this deal with Apple to throw away all your data. Now, if this health integration that was found within ChatGPT's app is tied to that system, then I'm for it, because private, secure, if it has to connect to a server, it's being thrown out. I can trust that. I think that's being audited. Apple does not play games in the privacy space, period.
Now, what do you think you would use that for? As like the one time you're asking your ChatGPT about, like, you obviously, I mean, I think people know if they need to lose weight or whatever. I don't know.
You'd be surprised. So there
Yeah.
there's actually a lot here. I listen to Merlin Mann. I've talked about him a lot, but he's one of my favorite guys on the internet, good podcaster. And he's said some crazy stuff before about how he uses AI. And I love listening to him because he is the other side of AI for me. So I get to hear
Mhm.
from someone who's very enthusiastic about it. And but I actually do believe if there was a right way to use it, he's doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But one of the ways he's doing it, which I don't fully agree with, is he's just dumping his medical information into it and to ask about, like, things. And he's getting useful insights from it, but that scares me because I've also listened to other podcasts and security experts talking about how, oops, ChatGPT created a sharing system that made everything public that you shared to a friend. If you ever shared one time from your conversation with ChatGPT, everything you put in that conversation is now technically security through obscurity behind a public link
Do you do
and
food
getting scraped.
tracking? Is that something you
Yes,
do? Okay, I used to do that with like the Lose It app and all that stuff, but it's been a while
I
since I've
use
food tracked.
food noms. I use it for every meal. And now especially, they have built-in Apple Intelligence foundation models into the system for capturing. You take a photo of your meal, and I know this is 100% accurate. I don't care.
Yeah, it's
It
close
just
enough. Gets you in the ballpark.
it's it's like, this looks like a 3/4 of a cup of mashed potatoes. Great, that's all I need.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't care. That's all I need. So yes, I do log through food noms. But yes, this ChatGPT integration, uh, like throwing your medical records at it, I don't advise it. There has been security and privacy issues with ChatGPT in the past, but if it was through Apple and their integration, it's all getting tossed the minute it's getting analyzed. So, so look at it like this: you could go to Apple Health and you have mountains of data, especially for someone like me who, since Apple Health existed, I don't even remember when it debuted. It's 2019 or no, 2015 with the Apple Watch, right? So this just repository of data that I have: sleep, heart, food, water, whatever, prescriptions,
Hmm.
how often I take my medicine, all of that stuff is in Apple Health. Throw that database at Apple or at ChatGPT, and that's the one true tried and true thing that AI is good for: data analysis. It can take a big wad of data and sort it, organize it. It might hallucinate, but at the end of the day, you'll get better insights. And I think that this is what this is going for. Now, I don't think this is a replacement for Apple's coaching system on device. I think this is more of a alternative option, or maybe something that ChatGPT is working on separately, again, to give users choice in this space, because Apple, for whatever reason, with AI is doing what it hasn't done in other systems, and that's giving users more third-party choice. And so, I don't know. If it's that system, fine. If this is a give ChatGPT all of your health data from Apple Health with a checkbox in the ChatGPT app and it's going to their
Hmm.
servers, no, not doing that, period. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Waiting for Apple's implementation.
As you were talking, I was thinking, wouldn't it be awesome and cool if Apple got harder into food tracking themselves and had more of an API for that? Can you imagine all these mobile ordering apps that could directly link into like a food tracking thing where like you order your drink at Starbucks and, oh, let's just automatically add that to the food tracking app, and you get your whatever at Subway or McDonald's, and just it's in there without you thinking. That'd
Yes.
be cool.
So I love food noms, and I would hate to see Apple Sherlock such a great app and hopefully not hurt the
Yeah, but if it could
developer.
be a API, like if Apple does it, I think they would also make an API for that type thing, and like you could choose it goes in
Third
Apple or it goes in the food noms or whatnot.
third parties will always do more than Apple's willing to do on their first party apps usually, but also for me, Apple usually does enough that I don't use the third party apps. So it's always such a give and take. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love Carrot Weather, but Apple Weather is so nice. I
Apple
don't know.
Weather's gotten so good,
It's
but yeah,
so good.
I don't know what it would take for buy-in to happen at like the big restaurants and places to just let's just add this and do that. I don't know if they would be resistant to that or
No,
if Apple could make that happen.
this is a brute force thing. This is one of those actually where AI would come in handy. Apple Intelligence Foundation models are fine enough for this also, but most of these
Oh,
apps,
receipts. Just look at your
well,
email and get your receipts and just put that into the thing.
yeah, and there's ways to do it, but at the end of the day, a Big Mac's a Big Mac, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that health data is available online because of the Food and Drug Administration.
Yep.
So I could see Apple putting together a food database that something like Food Noms could have, because right now Food Noms is pretty much 100% user based entries, right? So I can go in there and search for Big Mac, but it's because someone has taken the time to input all of the data, and I have to trust that that is accurate. Now I know
Right.
that the creator has put some stuff in himself, and I think there's a background library of some kind running, but it is mostly user or AI generated when I take a photo, that kind of stuff. So it's guessing on a lot of that. Like the AI knows what a hamburger should be calorie wise or protein
Mm-hmm.
wise, and
Yeah.
kind of just guesstimates. But if you were to get the exact information from McDonald's website on like the great, but
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm with you on this. So actually, this is part of the rumor cycle. Is Apple Health is working on more direct inputs because right now, Apple Health is a data gathering tool. It is an aggregate
Yeah.
tool.
I'm not sure how many do normal people use it outside of like they see the sleep widget, then it opens up to that. Like it seems like it's a very unapproachable app in many ways, I feel.
It's a bit scary if you don't know what you're looking at. There's a lot of input points, and there's very few things that you need to do in Apple Health you can't do anywhere else, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that would be great, and this is something I regret that I forget the name, but you might be able to help me with this. But it was one of these app developers that is working on a medication app that lets you track your medications and log them, but there's no API for Apple Health. So you still have to separately log the medication in Apple Health. And they were asking Apple for an API for that, and that still hasn't happened. But that's the kind of stuff like Apple Health. Right now, I get a notification in the morning that says, take your medication at this time. I long press the notification, say log all is taken, and I'm done. Then I go to the Apple Health app, I see that I logged it, right? I don't have to open the Apple Health app. I don't have to deal with that interface, but the interface is a lot. I'm not logging water intake. My smart water bottle puts that into an app, which syncs it to Apple Health. So it's an aggregator. Now, I want it to be a destination, and other apps have tried doing this. You've seen apps create better widget views of Apple Health data, giving you more information or more coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's sleep apps that tell you based on all of your sleep information how to sleep better, or it'll sync more information from Apple Health about what you've eat or drank before bed. And it's like, well, don't eat 3 hours before bed, that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to make this work. And this gets back to a wider discussion of what parts should Apple play and what parts should be third party developers. I love first party because it's integrated. It ties to things that no third party will ever have access to, and that's Apple's fault. I'm aware of that. But I mourn the loss of more usefulness from third parties, right? Like, and that's such a hard line to walk. And I really hope as Apple Health evolves, as they get more into this, because it seems to be Tim Cook's pushing point at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that they don't lose the magic that third parties can bring to such an ecosystem.
For sure.
This episode of the Apple Insider Podcast is brought to you by Aura Frame. They are the perfect holiday gift, even for those you might find a bit troublesome to shop for. I've always loved the idea of giving a digital frame to a friend or family member, loved ones, during the holidays, birthdays, whatever. It's just a great idea. It's very simple. You just get this digital frame, you load it up with a bunch of photos. Aura Frames specifically make this very simple. It's easy to set up, no subscription required, no fees, no memory cards, no fiddly nonsense. Just the frames and your beautiful photos shot from your very own iPhone. You just download the Aura app, connect it to Wi-Fi, and there you go. And if you want to be a little bit more personal, you can set up your frame with a special message that will be ready to go the minute it is open and taken out of the box. The Carver Mat 10.1-inch frame in particular is a beautiful landscape frame that has a high quality display. It's perfect for displaying those iPhone photos and will even play back up to 30 seconds of video and live photos. So those photos that you take on iPhone that have a few seconds on either side of the shutter, that works on your Carver Mat 10.1-inch frame. So don't worry about it being a bright display in the middle of your room. It also auto dims throughout the day and through the night to ensure it is always presenting the photos in the best quality possible without being disruptive to your space. Even though it is a landscape frame, it will match two portrait photos together to show side by side. That way the frame is always full, it shows the photos without leaving empty space or oddly cropping a photo to cut out important portions. It just works. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frame, named number one by Wirecutter, by using promo code AppleInsider at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code AppleInsider. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. This episode of the Apple Insider Podcast is brought to you by Rula, a telehealth therapy service. Therapy is a deeply personal thing that every person can benefit from, whether you're working through trauma or trying to get a better understanding of yourself or your relationship. Talking these things through with a professional can be life-changing. I've benefited from therapy after being in the military. Believe me, it's made a world of difference in how I view myself and the world around me. However, there are some problems you might encounter getting started with therapy, like finding a therapist or psychologist that you like to talk to, that's easy to reach, and actually affordable. Rula can solve all of these problems with its network of over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists nationwide. You'll pay as little as $15 per session, and depending on your benefits, you could pay as little as $0 per session. Rula's role doesn't stop at simply connecting you with a specialist. They play a role in every step of your mental health journey. They'll help you find the right therapist, help schedule appointments, and monitor your progress. And those are actually really important parts of this. Sometimes it can be overwhelming just talking to a person and getting this scheduled. Rula gets in there, makes sure things go over as smoothly as possible, and if you don't like the person you talk to, they'll help you find someone that actually helps you. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/AppleInsider to get started today. After you sign up and they ask you where you heard about them, please support our show and tell them Apple Insider sent you. Go to rula.com/AppleInsider and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. Speaking of AI and everything going on with that, first we have a departure this week, John Giannandrea, and there's a lot of discussion around Giannandrea's exit. He is retiring. He's not going to Meta. He's not starting his own company. He's not building something with Sam Altman. He is retiring.
Yep,
He's
he's 60. Yep, 60 years old, right?
61. Yes, very soon. So he'll be 61 when he retires-ish. And that's pretty great. I mean, so to start off, he's at retirement age for executives who make multi-million dollars.
It's like, yeah, he's got the bag. He could have retired a couple years ago, probably.
Yeah. So, and another thing is he was at Apple for several years, 7 years, I guess, almost 8 years. Now, April 2018, so almost 8 years. That's more than the average. Generally, people depart Apple, even some executives within 6 years of being there. A lot of these high-up people like to jump companies to widen their portfolio, find different opportunities, or just fresh thing, right?
Yep. Unless
So
you're a lifer like Schiller.
yes, some people join a company in 1995 and never leave, but Giannandrea is an interesting case because there's been a lot of anger thrown his way in recent months, and I wanted to ask you, where's your place with Giannandrea? Is it his fault? Whatever his fault is it his fault, and why? Like, where are you on all this?
I think Apple in general just discounted AI as like a thing that's going to be in the industry, and that was kind of a misstep from leadership. And they're like, oh crap, we gotta get some stuff out the door. And I don't think it's his fault. I think it's Apple as an organization just like
It's
not understanding the scope of what's going on with this industry, which is a major so it might not amount to anything in the long term. Like AI might not be this huge thing long term, but in the short term they kind of fumbled it a
it
bit.
moved the stock market and is moving the stock market, and that's pretty much the only thing AI has done for humanity is move the stock market. Now, I mean, I won't discount the fact that AI is useful in certain terms,
Yep,
like
it can be.
very specific use cases will help humans be more efficient, but AI is not generally replacing humans. Now, in 2020, internally at Apple, when those companies and those startups were saying, hey, we need to take this technology and basically suck up the internet and spit it back out at people, Apple said, actually, this has much better application on device, locally. And Giannandrea's main philosophy that still carries on at Apple today, even as he's leaving, it's not going to change. The closer you can have the LLM to the data, the better. So what better place to have it than on the iPhone? So Giannandrea, it's easy to use him as a scapegoat. But looking at his departure, I wrote a whole piece on this. I recommend everyone go read it, and we're not going to get into all of it today. But one of the things that we noted is his replacement. Now, I'm never going to be able to say his name right. I tried about 37 attempts before we started the show, and it just never came out. But it was Amar Subramanya, as close as we're going to get. Anyway, he is an acolyte of Giannandrea's. Basically, he bookended Giannandrea's stay at Google. He has the same philosophies. He's one of the people at Google pushing for on-device Pixel AI too, right? So this philosophy is not going anywhere. This guy is just another of him. So if Apple was truly upset with Giannandrea, why did they just bring in another version of him, right?
Yeah.
So I think people in their passion about, Apple's behind, which I still think is such an absurd thing to say, they're just it they're behind as far as they haven't released the thing yet, but I don't know. In
They announced
technology,
way too much stuff before it was ready. That's what they did.
well, so that's the thing is they announced one thing that wasn't ready. It was a very big thing, but everything else released. They renamed a photo editing feature to AI. Cleanup was clearly a machine learning tool when it first came out. They changed a few other things to quote unquote AI, which were probably machine learning backed anyway. And they gave us summaries, they gave us writing tools, they gave us Genmoji, which is just silly, cobbled together. And Image Playground has come a long way, especially since it added ChatGPT. But like,
Yeah, Genmoji is probably the only thing I still have fun just playing around with occasionally.
it can be fun to make something, but
Yeah.
ultimately the launch was flubbed by these ads that made people look stupid and evil for using AI, and then they had this system that never launched because it was bugged from the start. This is one of the reasons why people think Giannandrea left, which I don't think is accurate. But Giannandrea, again, I think gave us the Apple we have today. The interest in the hardware, the push for on-device and local was because of him. And we should honestly be thanking him on his way out the door instead of cursing him, because if Apple had not emphasized this stuff, we would be back to the Mac Pro trash can of chasing the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Gemini and OpenAI's ChatGPT are wrong for being server side. That's what they were always going to do. That's what those companies are built for. But I don't think that type of AI is the future. that is a means to an end. It allowed us to do a lot of things faster because you were never going to do those things locally in 2022. Never, right? There's no hardware on Earth. It would require your house-sized computing stuff to get that done. So, yes, it makes sense why they pursued the server. But Apple's long game here is, yes, we're going to have server stuff here. We're building our own custom chips and running our own private servers on green energy. But our ultimate goal is everything that you want to do needs to be done on your iPhone. And Pixel's trying to chase that, but they don't have the hardware for it. And basically no one else is bothering with that. And I think that is the future of this stuff, because without your information, without your identity, this stuff is much more useless.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used ChatGPT or AI in any way?
Only sporadically, not in any real significant way.
So anyone I listen to,
it seems like that when I did try to use it, I always ran into the bottlenecks of you need a paid account because I'm hitting it against too much stuff. Yeah,
costs money and it needs a lot of information. The people I listen to that use this stuff, I don't think this is something that a lot of nerds think about, but it needs everything. It's not just, give me a few prompts and we'll work on it. No, like if you're going to make this truly a personal, useful device system, it needs everything. And these companies are not being private about it. They're like, yeah, we're just going to suck it in and train on it. It's fine. You don't need to worry about that. We're not going to give anyone your information. We're using it. But still, that's gross.
Yeah, I've spoken to some developers that are like very novice developers, and they've used it to, as they say, vibe code some really impressive things where they're feeding it the exact APIs that they're needing to work with. And I don't think it's ChatGPT. It's one of its competitors.
Claude, probably.
Yeah. And having great success with that. So I think there are some uses of using it appropriately. Yeah.
The issue with vibe coding is
trying to fix the code, obviously.
Yes. Like if you don't know what you're doing, you won't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
And
but
AI.
So for some basic apps, it's not like you're going to make the next
now,
whatever out of
Claude is great. Now, see, again, I'm not against this stuff. Like Claude is great for when you know what you're doing and you've run into a wall and don't want to spend 18 hours researching one bug.
Yeah.
Claude is great for identifying that line of code that you made a mistake on, right? That is what it's good for. It is great at data analysis and outputting something, but just generating something from scratch that has never existed before, it just can't. It literally can't do it. These are not invention machines. They don't create anything. They're just regurgitating data they already have and combining it in new ways. It is physically impossible. And this isn't me exaggerating. It is physically impossible for anything that we call AI today to invent something brand new. It can't write a new song without using pieces of other songs. Right.
And you got to feed it your own ideas too.
Yeah. You got to feed it your own ideas, your own information. So Federico Viticci is dumping all of Mac stories into that note-taking app, right? That's great.
Notion?
I'm glad. Notion. And I'm glad that's working for him as a research tool. And that's an interesting use of AI. I think that is very smart. Like I would love to take the time it would take, but I would love to take everything that I've written for Apple Insider and have it as a database repository. Honestly, I'd love it if people had access to that. And maybe if we, were able to survive as a company, if that existed. But it's one of those things where it's give and take. And I think Apple's approach, privacy first and local, is going to be interesting and unreplicable, if that's even a word, because if you are truly wanting these things to work for you, you need it to have access to your data. And what has access to your data? It's your iPhone. So option A is upload your iPhone to ChatGPT, or option B is have Apple's foundation models live with your data, run it locally, and it never goes to a server. It doesn't become part of an ad farm. It doesn't violate your privacy, and you get the benefits of having a local on-device AI that literally knows everything about you, but not in a creepy way, because it knows everything about you and the fact that you're just using your device. So that's where I am with this stuff, and I'm very excited to see where Apple goes with this. And Giannandrea's legacy is not going to end just because he's leaving the building. Apple is not going to suddenly change their gambit in AI. But what is coming in 2026 is what they were aiming for in 2024 when they first announced this stuff. They were 2 years away from this. I'm glad it took this long. It needed to be perfected. If Apple had launched a bad system, imagine the headlines today. I prefer us talking about them being delayed, because even as much doom as that is generated, it is nothing compared to them shipping something that was poorly thought out. This episode of the Apple Insider Podcast is brought to you by Anti-Gravity. The Anti-Gravity A1 is the world's first 8K 360 drone that's easy to fly and puts you right in the cockpit with its vision goggle. The tiny drone weighs a little over 8 ounces and is controlled with intuitive free motion control mode, though more advanced drone pilots can shift back to standard joystick controls if desired. The 360 OmniLink transition enables smooth, low latency streaming so you can turn your head and look around the 360-degree scene. There's even an immersive cockpit mode that lets you view the world as if you're flying on the back of a dragon. There's going to be more of that to come later. I'm really interested in this drone because 8K 360 video at 30 frames sounds pretty incredible. You can of course go down to 6K or 4K as needed. I wouldn't mind seeing how this footage looks on an Apple Vision Pro, especially since now Apple Vision Pro supports viewing 360-degree content like what is filmed with the Anti-Gravity A1. The cameras are positioned at the top and bottom of Anti-Gravity A1, so the drone is invisible in the footage. And since you're capturing things at 360 degrees, you don't need to worry about framing or specific captures. Just record your flight and use the anti-gravity software to edit specific scenes and frames into place later. There's also a feature called SkyPath that lets you pass the vision goggles to an inexperienced user and let them see the drone in flight, no control required. Map out the path, automate the flight, and let the user sit back and look around the 360-degree view being live streamed to the goggle. The Anti-Gravity A1 is the world's first 8K 360 drone. It's genuinely a game changer. You get full immersive flight with the goggles, insanely intuitive controls, and endless creative freedom in editing. If you're thinking about buying a drone, make it this one. Check out the link in our show notes to learn more about the Anti-Gravity A1. So that brings us to our next departure. Alan Dye.
More of a surprise departure.
Yes. Yeah. So Giannandrea clearly was thought out. This guy was leaving, like, the reason why his division was getting smaller so he could focus, and then he retired. And now that division is being taken over and unchanged. The new guy is not getting robotics. He's not going to get Siri back. Like, they are focusing on ML AI for that team. Alan Dye, though, seems to have just up and left on a whim.
Which is weird because he kind of ran the show, had a lot of power there, just got liquid glass out the door. I thought he was happy at Apple. I mean, it seems like in this position, money's not the reason you leave, or could it be?
No. Well, kind of. So there's a really good story on Daring Fireball that I linked to in my Alan Dye story. So if you want to go find that, he mentioned that there are two kinds of people at Apple. There's the ones that stay and the ones that leave. And generally the ones that stay are the ones that have a sense, especially the design team. They have a good design sense. There's nowhere to go but down from Apple, is what this story said. And I agree with that. Like, there's nowhere on earth that you're going to find as a designer that's going to be more of a win than Apple, unless you don't have design sense. And this is Gruber being very very
Gruber
mean.
Is not a fan of Alan Dye's design
yes.
acumens, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I don't think he's necessarily wrong either. Alan Dye does not have a human interface design sense.
I think his best design work are the Apple Watch faces. Is that unfair to say?
No, that's fair, but I also think there's not enough of them.
There are not enough of them.
Contradictory in its own right. Like, he gave the ones that he gave attention are beautiful, and then he stopped, which is weird.
Yeah, but that's probably my favorite of his work, because he was part of, I think, he was around for iOS 7. I think he joined the company in 2006, so that's when, is that right? I'm trying to, but yeah, I'm not sure how integral he was with iOS 7, but Liquid Glass he was, of course, pivotal in, and that was his baby or whatever, and he got that out the door.
So, Alan Dye is going to Meta to basically save the company. Again, everything Meta is doing right now is a desperate attempt at relevance. Everything. We talked about Bloomberg on previous episodes. I'll repeat it here. Gurman has this joy, let's say, in reporting every single departure from Apple, and this is the winner, right? This is it. This is that he must have been ecstatic at this news. I think he might have been the one that broke it, but man, is this the end all be all of departures from Apple. But in the past year, about 14 or so people, Dye makes 15, and then his team makes like 20, right? Departures from Apple that are somewhat significant, notable enough that they're not janitors. It's that we know their name. They're a part of a team that may have played some role on that team. And everyone he's reported as if it's the end of Apple. Now, Dye leaving again, it's the end of Apple. If you read this Bloomberg report, it is a coup. Meta is going to destroy Apple from the inside out. Like it's, again, nonsensical in a lot of ways. I guess they get a lot of clicks on this type of reporting. It moves the stock market anyway. But funny enough, the stock market really did not react to this.
Yeah.
So,
what's funny
Apple,
is how big of a guy is Dye. Dye's huge with an Apple, but he doesn't have a Wikipedia entry, which I thought was interesting.
yeah, neither do I. But
yeah, right? Yeah. I do wonder in the short term, like before the next major iOS comes out, does Liquid Glass have more refinements in the next year leading up to it that other people wanted to see done?
So this is the thing. Apple finalizes their alphas in December. So whatever they're doing for 27 is already done.
Yeah.
So Apple's news on Dye leaving, it's hard to say. It looks like Apple is down for the day as we record, but they're not down much more than the stock market. So that's tricky. Microsoft and Nvidia are up barely, again, because the stock market itself is down. So Apple might have lost a third of a point on Dye's news, right? So this is not catastrophic for Apple. This is not Johnny Ive. And now he is interesting because he was Kate Spade or something, right? Like he was like a bag designer, right? He was
he
a
joined
product.
Apple for packaging, which Apple has done great packaging over the years. I miss the old iPod packaging where you could see the iPod. That was peak Apple, I think, packaging. But
yeah, the minimalism that they've done is great for the
shipping
nature, and it's great for shipping, but it's also sad. But anyway, the human interface design, right? This is primarily software. He's not really in hands-on with hardware anymore that I understand. Maybe I don't know, but as far as I know, he's basically purely software, and he came from a physical world. And this is the problem that people like John Gruber have with him, as he doesn't have a sense for software space design. And it does show in Apple software. Over the past decade, we've seen more clumsy things introduced to the system. We've seen 4 different ways for iPadOS to be operated. It's been a very, I won't say nothing too bad against him, because it's not that he destroyed these operating systems. Everything with Liquid Glass, honestly, is fine. I understand Tahoe is apparently a mess. I don't use Tahoe, so I don't know. But
yeah, I have not updated my Mac to Tahoe because I'm still one of those weird people that once a year I like to sync my old FireWire-based iPods.
Well, that's over now, I guess. But
it is.
But so Dye, not being a software design guy, has gotten in the way of Apple advancing its design as far as it needed to, right? We got iOS 7, and then 2 years later, Dye was in charge of interface design, right? Like, that's how close those things happen together. I think it was iOS 9 when he took over. And then jump forward to iOS 18, iOS 26, and it's not that big of a leap, really, in design terms from that flat design of iOS 7. Things evolved, and some things got more depth to it over time, but ultimately it was mostly the same. There was a few new things added in, mostly just things to the extraneous systems, like we gained the dynamic island and some very interesting design choices around that. But
no, the dynamic island, I think that's another one of his wins. I think that's a
yes,
brilliant thing that I still appreciate today. Like
and I think it's because it's tied to a physical object, and that's
Totally.
what's broken here is like.
And the Apple Watch, again, as I said, the Apple Watch faces, that's tied to a physical object. The ones that succeed that he's done. Yeah, those are.
The customization of iOS and the rest didn't start for 7 years under Dye, right? We didn't get to our first change the home screen thing until iOS 14, I believe, maybe 12, but 14 for sure.
Yeah.
And then we saw this ramp up. It's like it was so popular, and I think he just woke up and was like, customization, it's
People
popular.
Yeah.
People want that. And so like there's examples like that all over Apple of like Dye not quite getting there.
I wonder, Steve Jobs, do you think he'd be into the customization? I wonder if he would have been one of those like people slowing that down.
Yeah, so Jobs' thing was he hated how people made things ugly.
Yeah, right.
And he didn't want an ugly iPhone, and that's why the iPhone looked the way it did for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But now Apple's philosophy
is the black lock screen until whatever iOS 4, I think.
Yeah, now Apple's philosophy is more like, well, if you want your phone to be ugly, go for it. But
yeah.
And there's plenty of ugly iPhones out there, believe me. But the thing with Dye, though, I think he tried a little too hard to emulate Ive in his minimalism. Everything went behind buttons. Everything went behind widgets. Everything. Get rid of all the interface elements that you can. Sometimes it worked. Yeah, sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. 3D Touch was probably something of his, maybe. But like, and I like 3D Touch, but now that kind of got replaced because the hardware got too complex. Anyway.
It's funny. 3D Touch could probably fit inside the 17 Pro being chunkier now.
Yeah, but I think that it introduces complexity.
You probably could not fit inside the Air, yeah.
No,
but yeah, complexity, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so anyway, long story short, Alan Dye was replaced by Stephen LeMay, or yes, I think it's Steve LeMay. So, he's, this is funny. I wonder who's correct. I see a Steve with a V, and I wrote it Steve with a PH, but ooh, that's tricky. We'll have to find that one out.
So Steve's going to be the replacement. Is this do you think long term, or is Apple now looking for somebody, or Apple likes to do things internally, so maybe they're not looking for anyone new?
So Stephen LeMay was at Apple from 1999.
That was a very important year for Apple back then.
Yes, I that's around the same time Johnny Ive joined Apple, funny enough, right? So I think he's here to stay. He's taking over the human interface design team. This isn't like Giannandrea, who had his team broken up. This is the same team. Apparently Dye is taking his group with him, which honestly, I've seen so many good riddance posts on the internet since. So fine.
This guy was not a part of Dye's like close,
No.
Okay.
These
this
guys
is a guy that's
associate.
Probably had some feelings for a while. It's like, oh, maybe.
Apparently, this is being treated as a miracle. Like, so Gruber's story is great because he has a lot of connections at Apple that will never speak on the record, but he can speak, through them. And he's judging by how internal his friends at Apple, again, this might be very biased, might be a very select group, so take this for a grain of salt. But internally at Apple, they're like, how did we get 2 wins in one day? Not only is Alan Dye leaving, which they never thought was going to happen. They thought he was going to die there.
Yeah.
But they got Stephen LeMay, which apparently is really important because this guy is the opposite of Dye in every way. He is an interface guy. He understands interface through and through. He's never designed a handbag in his life. Right. So I think this is really important for Apple. And we got to close up because we got some after show to do. I know you have somewhere to be. So I'll say good luck, Stephen LeMay. Putting out here, Liquid Glass is not going anywhere.
No, it'll be refined. Like iOS 7 got heavily refined. Yeah, refined to be more usable and all that. So it'll be more refined. And
Apple put too much emphasis on this is the future for them to just throw it away a year later.
I still
Also,
really love sliding the between the things on different
bubbles.
It's just the bubbles. They're nice. Yeah.
So the thing about Liquid Glass is we're not going to see that much change this year. They're already finalizing. I'm sure you can make some tweaks. Even in the next 26 point update in 26.4, there could be some little changes, maybe some corner radiuses corrected, right? Like things like that can change, but significant changes, don't expect them. Not anytime soon. Maybe a point update in 27, but not now. Liquid Glass isn't going anywhere. I doubt there's going to be a toggle that just turns it off. Like that kind of stuff isn't going to happen.
No, it's a whole design thing. You can't just turn. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, people really keep asking for that, and I'm like, it's not going to happen. But I do think he's going to we're going to get the best of both worlds. We had the guy who designed handbags make a material, and now we're going to have the guy who did actual interface design take that material and apply it to human interfaces that are whimsical and useful and smart, right? I'm ready for whimsy and interesting design to come back to Apple, and I think Liquid Glass is that, right? I think we can get back to more interesting little tidbits. Like the thing I put in my article is the Voice Memos app is someone's voice saying the word Apple, right? That's what the icon is.
I actually didn't realize that. That's cool.
Right. So that kind of stuff used to be everywhere. And it kind of dried up under Dye, I guess. So maybe it was his fault. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe we'll see that come back. We don't know. We have no idea. We'll be speaking more on this in the future as more information comes out, as we see more changes in the operating systems. But expect iPad OS to stay the same, expect Vision OS to look a lot like what it is, and expect Liquid Glass to stay. That is not the kind of change that's going to happen, but so LeMay, I do believe, though, will apply an evolution that I think will make designers happy, and I think that's exciting.
Absolutely.
All right, so closing up, you have an iPhone Air. How do you feel about that?
I love the Air. It still delights me every single day I use it. I don't think anyone else cares or notices. It's kind of remarkable. I've been using it since it came out, and the one and only person who has noticed I have a thin phone is my 5-year-old nephew I saw over Thanksgiving, and he was very impressed, and he was delighted by it. But no adults at Thanksgiving. The family that visited. No one seemed to notice. They did notice I don't use a case, and they were baffled by that. I had one family member that was supportive. He also does not wear a case on his weird Android phone because he's like, why would you want a case? Because it just makes it thicker and less utility or whatever. Yeah.
But you can get those from like a bargain bin at Walmart, so you can just run those over. It's fun.
Absolutely.
So listeners know that I got my wife an iPhone Air, and she's been using it fine. No battery life issues. No. A few people have actually in public pointed it out. We went on our honeymoon, and a lot of people in Charleston, we did some testing before our honeymoon in Asheville, North Carolina.
Nice. And we went down to Charleston for Thanksgiving, that area. So
nice. Yeah. So like a lot of people actually pointed out like, hey, is that the new phone? And I guess it was because it was fresh and it was on people's minds. But we have had people like notice its thinness and ask to hold it and see what it looks like and feels like. And so that's been interesting.
Yeah. What I love doing, I love pinching it from the bottom to just pick it up. That's a delightful thing. And I also use the camera area as a little handle. So I'll just like pop it up with that as a handle. And then I love the camera control. I didn't have that in the 15 Pro Max that I had before this. And then camera's great, but it's also inspired me to actually use my Sony camera, and I got a 18mm to 300mm lens, Tamron.
Nice.
And that thing is so much fun to use, and I'm getting better pictures than I would from like an iPhone with the telephoto. And it's encouraging me to use that when I want to do the fun zoom shots. Like, let me just bring my big camera.
Yeah.
And I'm having more fun with photography now that I'm like having the decision of let's just do the single camera or get the big camera out and get some really fun shots that way. My daughter's very excited. She is in the age where she sometimes doesn't want her picture taken, but the fancy camera she gets more excited by, which is fun.
So if the iPhone Fold actually ever materializes, is that a product for you?
Potentially. Cost could be a factor and maybe some household convincing. And then I also tend to get a phone every 2 years once the phone is all the way paid off.
Right.
So probably not the first version if it happens next year.
My biggest issue with the iPhone Fold, if it does actually launch this year, we're still waiting on that inevitable, it's delayed again, rumor. But if it actually does launch, it's two iPhone Airs put together, it is above the iPhone Air. It is not an iPhone Pro. It is not an iPad Pro. It is an iPhone Air that opens to an iPad mini. Think of it that way. This is not a Pro device. It does not have Pro cameras. It does not have
I'm curious of the camera thing, what they'll do with that.
Yeah, it does not have a Pro battery life. It has compromises in its design structure. It's going to inevitably have some kind of crease down the center of the screen. Even if it's borderline invisible, it will still be there. There's going to be a lot of interesting things. I don't think it's going to have an external display, so you'll have to open it to use it.
You think it'll... Oh, you do think that. Okay, interesting. So I was thinking, if you just want to use it folded, you could just have it folded and have great battery life like that. Yeah.
It's tricky. We don't know. We've seen maybe one rumor of an external display. This device has been in development so long. Apple probably has 40 prototypes internally. We have no idea which one they're going to choose. I
can't imagine Apple gives you a device that you have to unfold every time you want to use it. That seems like such a pain to have.
I can't imagine Apple releasing an iPhone Fold, to be honest.
I mean, the rumors would say you're wrong, but... we'll see.
You can They also built a car. I mean, just because they worked on it doesn't mean it has to come out.
I know.
We'll see.
I love the Air though. I must say, I wish there was it's a great size. I do wish I love the mini size though, but that'll never happen again. I don't think.
Well, Tim, I got to say thanks for coming on the show. I got a few let me try that again. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on the show. I've got a few podcast reviews to read and some stuff to close up, but I'm going to go ahead and let you go. We're going to get into the Apple Insider Plus segment. So if you're listening, stick around. I'm going to talk for a second by myself. You'll hear some music, and then you'll hear Apple Insider Plus, where Tim's going to join me again, and we're going to talk about the future of Apple Vision Pro. So thanks again, Tim, so much for joining me. You're always a lifesaver when William and everyone's away.
Absolutely.
And that's the conversation with Tim. I'd like to thank Tim Chaten once again for joining me. He's always a lifesaver when Mike or William are away and unavailable, and he's just such a blast to talk with. But now it's time to get into the end of the show here. First off, if you want to reach out to me and discuss anything we've discussed here on the show or share topic ideas or anything like that, you can reach me hilly.tech on Blue Sky or wes@appleinsider.com for email. I'm also on Mastodon. You can reach me hillytech there as well. Now, if you want to have your review read here on the show, of course, you can do that on Apple Podcasts. And it's interesting. Last week we had several just out of nowhere, and this week we have, I think, 4 more to read through. So that's pretty incredible, guys. So keep that up. We love hearing from you. We want to understand what you think of the show. And this week we've got some very kind words from our listeners. M. Hotman31, which sounds familiar. Maybe they've left a review before. That's 5 stars. Without a doubt, the best podcast on Apple rumors and future predictions in tech. Wes has continued to amaze me with every episode of the podcast. He is spot on when it comes to sticking to the topic. He brought up great point that it's cool to see new types of hardware, but is it worth it for me? Keep it up, guys, and look for the next episode. Thank you for those very kind words. I'm very flattered. So we have another 5-star review from Lost Under a Mind. 5 stars. Such a great podcast. Very informative and entertaining. I love all the discussion on Apple. I agree. Also, though, that you can't discuss a top company without dipping into politics. I look forward to Controversy Corner. It doesn't matter if I agree or not. I trust their information will be well researched. 5 stars for every episode. Very kind of you. Thank you once again. And we have another person echoing these thoughts. Nick No Names, stay the course. I'm seeing some reviews from people who want to make this podcast a political safe space, which is ironic coming from some people. I'm not going to delve too much into this one. I think you guys can go read this yourself. I don't want to make anyone too angry, but it's a very colorful review. It says that tech is amazing, but also dangerous, and Apple's a key player. So we should be discussing these topics. Let me speak, and the review continues. Let me speak up in praise of the teaming of William Gallagher and Wes Hilliard. They have complementary strengths, which makes cohesive presentation examination. This reviewer falls more in line with computer-based usage, and doesn't really game, just like William. Whereas he sees me as a younger person who games and explicitly likes the iPad, and these opposing but complementary positions help improve the show. Thanks, guys, and thank you for that review, which gets us to our last review here. So poor William's gonna have to hear this one, but don't worry, William, we still love you. Hefty Bags, 5 stars. I guess he's enjoying the show. He enjoyed the show with Mike and I hate to burst your bubble, Hefty Bags. Mike is a rare guest here. He's very busy helping with basically run the day at Apple Insider. He's their managing editor. So he only steps in when absolutely necessary. He's not going to be a recurring show element. William will be coming back, and it's going to be him and I again for a while. But he says in this review, William has been a drag on the show. This review is critical. I wish him best. And he goes on to say that, William should have a better grip on modern tech and the things that people like something like Fortnite. And he goes on to say Mike did an excellent job on November 29th. And hopefully we see more of them again. Sorry, Mike is only going to join very rarely. And I will say, I think William will appreciate this part, that William would be excellent at hosting a show similar to Leo Laporte on Twit. I agree with that. But I think William's also an excellent host here at Apple Insider. So thanks for your review, Hefty Bags, your 5 stars. Please, hopefully you give William a bit of a break. He will be coming back and continuing his excellent work here on the show. And thanks again, guys, for leaving those kind reviews. We never tire of them. And even if they're critical, even if it's 1 star, we'll share them here. It's good for us to discuss and grow together. Now, once again, I would like to thank our sponsors for this week, Aura Frames, Rula, Anti-Gravity. And if you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, you don't have to worry about ads. Once again, it's an ad-free show, and you're going to get Apple Insider Plus here in just a few moments after that music plays. And it's going to be on the future of Apple Vision Pro. I'm going to continue my discussion with Tim Chaten and one of his more expertise positions, Apple Vision Pro, spatial computing. Where is Apple going with all of this, especially now with the context of what they've done with the M5 model? So hopefully you guys stick around for that and enjoy that discussion. And I will be back with William to discuss everything once again next week.